First thing, I need you to disregard the completely historically inaccurate hairstyle and the pretty fantasy elf ears. Hi, my name is Amy. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be working on an 18th century jacket based on a pattern by J.P. Ryan, and I am making it to go along with my historically adequate 1730s merchant class ensemble. I have already completed several items from this costume, and those are in a playlist that I will link right here. And I'm going to make a view that closes completely in the front. Historically, these jackets would have closed using pins, and they would have been pinned into the stays under the jacket. I am also going to be using a linen duvet cover from IKEA, which means that with the exception of the fichu, apron, cap, and mitts, this entire ensemble is made out of IKEA bedding. This is the bedding I'm going to use. It is a linen duvet cover, and it's brown and white striped. The brown matches the solid brown of the petticoat that I've already made. So with that, let's get sewing.
After cutting out the paper and pattern pieces and pre-washing my fabric, I cut all of the pieces out of the fabric, and I used the same fabric for the lining as I did the main fabric. So I cut 4 pieces of each pattern piece. Here you can see me looking at the fold line for the back peplum, and at this point I chose to make the smaller version of the peplum. For my next jacket I will make the larger version. The first step of assembling the jacket was to sew the center back seam and then the center backs to the side backs and so on around to the front for the outer layer, and then I repeated that process for the inner layer. After each of the seams were sewn, I clipped the curves and corners and pressed the seams open. Once both the main body lining and main piece were assembled, it was time to sew the sleeves. And I sewed both the lining and the main fabric right sides together, pressed the seams open, and then inserted the sleeves into the corresponding jacket piece. Once the main fabric and the lining were completely assembled, I matched them up right sides together at the center back and the shoulder seams, and then I sewed across the front, around the neckline, and down the other side of the front. The next step was to match up the seams along the bottom hem and pin them, leaving about a 5-inch gap in the center for turning the jacket right side out once this bottom edge was sewn shut. Before turning the jacket right side out, I trimmed the seams and clipped all of the corners, and then clipped the curves around the neckline. Then I turned the jacket right side out, made sure I pushed the corners out with a point turner, and pressed the seams really well. Once the jacket was right side out and the seams were pressed really well, I used a ladder stitch to close up the opening in the bottom edge of the jacket. Once the jacket was sewn together, it was time to make the cuffs. I started by sewing the cuffs right sides together and then marking 5/8 of an inch up from each of the triangle marks so that I could cut out an area that would end up being the loose part of the wing cuff once the completed cuff was attached. Once the cuffs were trimmed and pinned up, I lined them up right sides together along the top edge, and then I stitched them together along that edge. Once the cuffs were stitched together, I trimmed the seams, turned them right side out, and pressed them really well. Once the cuffs were pressed and ready to go, I followed the markings on the pattern pieces to add 2 pleats to the front of each cuff. The cuffs were pinned to the sleeves right sides together, only to the main layer of fabric, not to the lining layer of the sleeve. That would be attached later. The sleeve cuffs were sewn in place using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and by sewing right over the edge of the open wing, that created the wing effect of the cuff. When the cuffs were sewn on and the seams pressed up towards the shoulder, the sleeve lining was pulled down, folded in by 1/2 inch, and pinned to the cuffs. The sleeve lining was then attached to the cuffs by hand using a ladder stitch.
I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed making this jacket. It ended up taking a lot less time than I originally expected, and it ended up being a lot easier than I originally expected as well. I made the pleated winged cuffs for the sleeves, and I made the version that crosses over in the front and pins closed. I have not added the hook and eyes to it yet, because I was finishing it in a hurry so I could wear it to a wedding. In just a minute, I will put up some pictures of me wearing the full costume. And in wearing the full costume, I have learned a few things. One of the things I learned was that I need to take 6 to 8 inches off of the length of my petticoat because it is too long. Other than that, the jacket fits great. It is really comfortable, and I thoroughly enjoyed wearing this costume to the wedding. I even had a little bit of extra time to be just a little bit extra and made myself a matching mask. It was a great time. The wedding was lots of fun. It was for some friends of ours, and I really hope you enjoyed watching this video and seeing me make something that I've never made before. With that, if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you feel like it, subscribe. If you would like YouTube to let you know every time I upload, go ahead and hit the little bell. Thank you for watching.